thanks so much for having me. I'm Wright Gladstein, founder of Sphere. And I'm going to be saying a word that is super duper boring, painfully boring. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, here goes. It is 401Ks. Don't even try leaving, I already bolted the doors. But the reason that I want to talk about 401Ks is because this painfully boring word, which might be one of the most boring things on the planet, might actually be the thing to save it. Let me tell you why. So I started out my career caring a lot about climate change. And I thought early on that if I could be a serial entrepreneur helping get technologies out of labs, that could be worthwhile. So I ended up going to MIT for an MBA as an excuse to meet people across campus inventing things, which was amazing. There are over 300 labs at MIT that do energy-related research, and I got to meet a lot of the people in those labs. And while I was there, I met my co-founders for my first startup. They had invented the first processor chip to communicate using light. So we spun that technology out in 2015 and founded this company, IR Labs, which is cutting the energy use of AI in half by using light to move data between chips. And we've grown that company to where now we have customers like Intel and NVIDIA and AMD. But back in 2017, we started offering a retirement plan to our employees, and I asked for a climate-friendly investment option in the lineup. And it ended up taking over 3 years to get a single option added that at a baseline wasn't invested in fossil fuel companies. I couldn't believe how long it took and how hard it was. And so I started diving into trying to understand how 401ks work and why it was so hard. And what I ended up learning was that I wasn't alone, and it wasn't just other climate tech founders like me looking for this stuff, but there are groups of employees at the biggest companies in the world, including Google, Microsoft, Apple, where they've sent hundreds of emails to HR. They've gotten thousands of signatures on petitions asking for climate-friendly investment options and not getting them for the same reasons that I couldn't at IR Labs as CEO, asking our service providers to get it done. And it turns out over 99% of people are forced to invest in fossil fuels today through their 401ks. The reason is that there are tons of lawsuits in the 401k industry. And those lawsuits fall into two categories. There are the excessive fee lawsuits, where funds charge too much compared to others that are out there that charge lower fees. And there are the underperformance lawsuits, where funds haven't performed as well as alternatives that are out there. And if employers don't notice these things and replace them with better performing funds, they get hit with these lawsuits. My alma mater, MIT, just settled a 3-year-long lawsuit for this very reason. So it happens all the time. And the crazy thing about that keeping climate-friendly funds out of 401ks is that the oil and gas industry is an industry in decline. Investing in the oil and gas industry today, while the combination of solar, wind, and batteries is actually less expensive than fossil fuel, power generation and electric cars are popular and are taking off, it's kind of like forcing people to invest in the horse and buggy industry in the early 1900s when the automobile was starting to take off, right? It just doesn't make financial sense. And while we're at it, while we're investing in this industry that just doesn't make financial sense to invest in at this point, we're also devastating the planet. Because it turns out that 401ks in the US have over $1 trillion invested directly in the US fossil fuel industry. And that makes up about 1/5 of the market cap of that US fossil fuel industry. So everyday people like you and me are holding up the status quo by being forced to invest in this fossil fuel industry that's in decline. But the good news is that it turns out getting your 401k out of big oil can have a bigger impact than almost anything else you can do for the climate. It's one of the most impactful climate actions that you can take. It has a bigger impact than installing solar panels, driving an electric car, never flying again, or planting hundreds of trees. Just moving your money has a bigger impact than any one of those things on a carbon footprint basis. And so The question is, why do we not have any of these options in our 401ks? I couldn't find a good answer, so decided to start my second company, Sphere. Here we go, Sphere, where we launched the first climate-friendly fund that's designed to check all the boxes of what 401k fiduciaries look for in that lawsuit-heavy world. So that fund is called the Sphere 500 Climate Fund. And I'll tell you a little bit about it. So it invests in the top 500 U.S. companies by market cap. It doesn't invest in fossil fuel companies. We also exclude a few other things like deforestation companies, private prisons, tobacco, and weapons manufacturers. And importantly, for the companies that we do invest in, which is about 405 or so of that top 500 list, we vote our shares to get them to do better on climate. So we're helping encourage some of the biggest companies in the world to do better on climate through our shareholder vote. Now, when we offer this fund, we're not charging more for it than you would pay with a regular fund in a 401k. So we charge 7 basis points. That stands for 0.07%, or for $100 invested, every year you're paying 7 cents. And that's really on par with any S&P 500 index fund that would be in a 401k plan. So we're not charging more. And when we exclude those 90-something companies from that 500 list, it has close to no impact on the performance of the fund. That our fund is 99% correlated to the S&P 500 over the entire 4 years of its existence, as well as over the 10-year back test of the index that we launched that our fund tracks. So going back 14 years now, it's 99% correlation, which makes those 401k fiduciaries feel really good when they're looking at this option for adding to a 401k plan. And that 1% difference between the Sphere 500 and the S&P 500 is actually outperformance over the long term because of what I was talking about before. So it turns out that it's not just that the fossil fuel industry will be in decline in the future, but actually it already has been. Over the past 10 years, the energy sector has had the worst returns of any sector in the economy. Here we wrote fossil fuels because it turns out if you look at how S&P or Bloomberg defines energy, it's actually just fossil fuel companies because they classify the solar and the wind companies and the battery companies as tech, not as energy. So a really easy way to just see how fossil fuels have been performing is look at the energy sector. That's what the red line is in this graph. Worst returns over the past 10 years. And the same thing is true over the past 15 years and over the past 20 years. So for the past 2 decades, this has been the worst sector you could invest in from a purely financial perspective. And what makes it worse is it's also been the most volatile over the past 10, 15, and 20 years. Think about that. Going back 20 years, that includes the financial crisis of 2008, which devastated the finance industry and the real estate industry. And yet, even those blue lines, the 20-year volatility is higher for the fossil fuel industry than it is for the real estate or finance industry. In finance speak, volatility equals risk. And typically you're willing to trade off higher risk for higher returns. The energy sector has the highest risk and the worst returns. Why is anyone investing in this? Well, it turns out the wealthy ones aren't. More and more wealthy institutions are getting out of fossil fuels. This includes really anyone who has the option. So the New York State Pension Fund, the New York City Pension Fund have both divested. The Harvard Endowment, the Church of England is out of fossil fuels. The University of California Endowment, their 401k actually, and pension fund, they have that choice, so they were able to get out. Even the Rockefeller descendants, so for anyone who doesn't know this, J.D. Rockefeller was the founder of Standard Oil, which became a massive monopoly across the U.S. selling oil and gas. The Congress broke it up because it was too much of a monopoly, and it turned into what is today Exxon, Chevron, etc. So the descendants of J.D. Rockefeller, who made their wealth off of fossil fuels, have divested from the fossil fuel industry. I hope they really do care about the planet. They probably do, but they also probably saw that the writing is on the wall, and this industry is not making them money. So why don't we, as regular people in 401ks, have the option to stop investing in this industry? Well, now we do, and that's what we're doing at Sphere. So the Sphere 500 Fund, we launched it as a startup, partnering with some amazing companies that helped us get it off the ground. I won't go through kind of the details here, but we can talk after if you're interested. One thing I do want to talk about a little more is the voting, though, because I think this is something that so many people don't appreciate how important it is. Over 80% of Americans are worried about climate change and want to do something about it. And yet, if we are invested in 401ks or in fund products generally, we are having our shares voted at the biggest companies in the world on our behalf against climate progress. Because index funds generally have a policy to always vote with management. However management at a company says we want you to vote, all these index funds just by default vote that way. And that means they're voting against shareholder proposals having to do with climate change 98% of the time. It's wild. Over 80% of us worried about this, and yet almost 100% of the time we're voting to prevent progress. And so what we do at Sphere is we flip that equation on its head and by default vote in favor of these climate change related shareholder proposals, which, by the way, are 100% of the time we've found aligned with the long-term value creation for the companies we invest in. Putting solar on your roof might cost something up front, but you get your payback after 2-3 years, and then you're actually saving money on electricity. We see these examples over and over again where it's in the financial long-term interest of investors and also good for the planet. So anybody can invest. We're available on pretty much all of the 401k platforms, and you don't have to invest just through a 401k. This is a fund, so anyone can invest through a brokerage platform wherever you already have an account, or you can open an account directly with us to avoid brokerage platform fees. And you can have an even bigger impact if you work at a company that offers a 401k and you get your HR to start offering this fund to all of your colleagues as well. The average American can get $6,000 out of fossil fuels through their 401k and other savings. But if you work at a company like Google or Microsoft or Apple, these companies have $50 billion in assets in a single 401k plan. And if you can get that company to start offering better options, you can literally move billions out of the fossil fuel industry just by focusing on your own sphere of influence. It's a really powerful way to make a difference. I have to share that none of this is investment advice. Please talk to a financial advisor before making investment decisions. And before I finish, I just want to also mention this incredible project that we've been working on along with a nonprofit called Stand.Earth, called Actors Retire Big Oil, where we've been working with members of the Screen Actors Guild who have their savings with the SAG pension. And that pension has over $200 million invested in fossil fuel companies. So over 500 actors have signed an open letter to the SAG pension managers asking them to take that $200 million out. But they also know the enormous stage that they have. And so they've been sharing this on their social media, and we've gotten press coverage, and we've gotten over 200 million views, helping more people learn the fact that, hey, you're invested in fossil fuels and you can do something about it, because it's bad for your wallet and bad for the planet. And this is actually one of the most impactful things you can do for climate. And so I'd ask you to help us spread the word, help the actors spread the word. There are 3 concrete things you can do today. So number 1 is move your money. If you have savings in a brokerage account or IRA, you can move it today. You don't have to ask anyone's permission. Once you've done that, if you work at a place that offers a retirement plan, email your HR. Get them to add this option to your retirement plan, and then talk to all your colleagues about this great new option that's available. And number 3, we are right now opening up a $5 million seed round in Sphere. So if you are an investor that likes to invest in startups, I'm here. I'd love to talk. Because money talks. We're making it shout for the planet. Join us. Thank you.